Mr. Boyle, that's actually item 6, moving on to afterwards. That's the question of the council. That's fine. Mr. Evans.
Yeah, sorry to intrude. On your health and safety briefing about the evacuation procedure, I believe that the evacuation procedure is not through that door. The actual fire exit, ladies and gentlemen, is through there, and the evacuation procedure is that everybody meets in the car park, unless it's changed. Thank you, Chair.
I sent an email to the council quite a while ago. I had no response, but I'll just bring it to your attention that Leigh about the fraud that's going on down there, harassment of the customers, and the invasion onto the environmental land by Paul Devon of Thamescraft. There's also a lot of fraud going on down there. He makes up bills called good services, which are illegal, and he's charging VAT to the customers, as well as he's taking cash payments from the customers. There's a lot of impropriety going on, and I'd like to brought to your attention, and hopefully an investigation will be go into this situation there. It's absolutely appalling. We've had harassment, abuse, verbal abuse, and threats. It's really out of order. Thank you.
Could I then ask you to resend that email to Logan, please?
Yes, I can. I'll get your details after the meeting, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. We'll provide a response to that matter in due course. Item 6, questions from members of the public. Mr. Boyle.
It's been, 5-6 weeks, I've got no information. I'd really like to know what is happening there. That's question 1. Question 2, can you reassure me that we have a fully functioning council? I have evidence to demonstrate that we do not, and I'd really like reassurance that actually the council is functioning and is able to take part in everything it's supposed to. And finally, I read in the Leigh Times recently the council are fluid. You referred to the residents of Leigh-on-Sea as trolls. I'd really welcome you retract that, issue a public apology. They're the 3 questions.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Naturally, staffing matters cannot be discussed publicly. There's an ongoing investigation. And
what does this include?
We can't provide that information at this time. It's a confidential matter.
It's indefinite.
In answer to the second question, the council is fully functioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Boyle, for your question. I did not say the people of Leigh were trolls. What you read was published by the Leigh-on-Sea News, accurately. And what you read was this. And I'm reading the extracts. The only winners have been the trolls and those who want the current structure to stay in place with little or no accountability or transparency. The town council must be about the residents and councillors. There have been people interfering from a great distances, from afar, and I think we all understand the perniciousness of what and who trolls are. I certainly do. So what I have read you does not say the people of anywhere are trolls. It said the only winners are the trolls. The trolls are the people that probably from all parts of the country and all over the region on an issue. And our issue today, the principal issue, has been spread far and wide. And it's not been to help, actually, any party involved. And that is my answer. So, no, I do not issue an apology because, no, I did not call anyone trolls.
You did call us trolls in the meeting. Thank you, Chair. I wish the minutes were not getting issued.
Thank you. There are no further questions from members of the public.
Do you not have a chair? Let me give you the papers.
Do we have members of the public here to ask questions?
Chair, you haven't answered my second question.
As the council is now functioning, it is fully functioning.
Okay. I've got an example of where...
No, it's not an open matter for debate. It's not a public meeting. It's a meeting open to the public.
How do we take that forward, Chair, in an open and transparent manner?
Then please bring it forward with your evidence.
Okay, all right. When and how?
Is Mr. Paris here to ask his question?
I've withdrawn my question. I'll inform that, yes.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Fisher, are you here to ask your question?
Yes, Chair.
Wait for night.
Thank you, Chair. My question, which was submitted the other day, the suspension of the council's town clerk is a serious matter. Without going into specific details of matters involved, can the council please advise of the timeline, i.e. the relevant dates of the events that have resulted in the suspension of the town clerk? And secondly, what are the additional costs incurred by the council by its actions to the suspension of the town clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. I refer you to my previous answer relating to the staffing matter. A written response will be provided to you in terms of the cost of matters.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
So I said, a written response will be provided to you over the costs, the details of that.
Excuse me, Chair, could that be made public, please?
Yes,
It'd be a public so everyone will get the response.
Yeah.
Will they?
Put it on your website.
If I can suggest, taking the notes of the questions that have been asked, the questions that have been submitted in writing, what I think the easiest way of dealing would be is if I put these and the responses into the minutes of the meeting, so there will be a permanent record of what was asked and what was said. And as soon as they've been done, the first people that look at them will be the councillors to make sure I've caught their mood. Once that's done, then the draft minutes can go up and they'll be there to be noted. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Thank you.
If we just clarify then, there's one specific question that I need to pick up from you over there, sir. But beyond that, there were questions about suspension of the clerk, additional cost incurred, clarity that the council is functioning effectively in the absence of the clerk, and the trolls, which I think has been answered in full. But I will make a note of the question and the answer in the
refusal of an apology as well.
That's not for me to say.
Why use the word third?
Item 7, questions from councillors. Councillor Mulroney.
Thank you, Chair. Following on from the questions from Councillor Fisher, I don't wish to know any details at all. I want to ask a question which has got a simple yes or no, or two questions actually, which have got simple yes or no answers. confirm whether or not any councillor has had access to confidential staff files, and also whether any councillor or the HR consultant has been in contact with former members of staff? And my second question, can you advise what you consider to be a reasonable time to give a written answer to questions from members of the public, bearing in mind that I believe there are some still outstanding from several weeks and months ago? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowling. No councillors have access to confidential files relating to staff members. Obviously, they remain confidential, and if anything is required, they'll be handed over to the investigator directly. In terms of direct contact with the staff, we have had 2 full members of staff whistleblow in contact, and that's as far as I will say that matter.
Okay, and the second question?
And the third and final question over the questions. We had several questions that were anonymous and have still not been provided details with the questions, and obviously the standard will state that we do not reply to anonymous questions.
You answer the question.
What about answering the ones that did have an answer?
Can I come back on that one?
Yes.
I was at the first meeting of this council in this session when Mr O'Boyle asked several questions, and I think there was another person asked questions as well, and he was given an assurance that there would be a response. I think Mr Watt gave an assurance about giving a response on the content of the manifesto, if I remember rightly. I'm not aware that all of it has been responded to, and that was in May, so we're now in September.
As far as I'm aware, a response was sent via the town clerk to Mr O'Boyle and other questions. And as far as I'm aware, they were added to the minutes of that meeting as well.
A response was sent whether asked the questions are debatable, but the response was sent.
Are there further questions from councillors? Thank you. So, Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Chair. I've got several that came by way of. Thank you. I have several questions that came basically onto the agenda via email from the London Town Clerk, and I will simply read out 2 of them. I'd be quite happy to receive responses in due course. The first being that I'm asking this council to associate itself with comments from such as trading standards, the Liberal Democratic Party, the local council, city council and others to request that there be consideration for banning outright disposable vape devices. I would suggest that perhaps we might propose a letter to the local MP to get her to move on it. That was my item 1. Does anybody wish to comment?
That is on the agenda for discussion later.
Thank you for that. Maybe my second one is as well then, in that case. On my second one, I've asked that council and councillors generally, individually and otherwise, desist from sniping at other members through the local press. It's getting very irritating. I'm sure members of the public have seen quite a few letters, which I'm sorry, my nature does not oblige me to be able to disregard, and I'm spending too much time responding to such sniping. So I'm asking that this council moderate its views as expressed to the press, unless there is, of course, a particular and specific topic rather than criticism. Thank you. Shall I go on now to the bus item? In that case, I will take my seat at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Your question's been noted.
Chair, can I just, sorry to interrupt, can I just, part of my final question was, can you advise what you consider to be a reasonable time to give a written answer to questions? Because we've now had questions that have been.
Yes, of course. I would say 14 days is adequate time for response. Councillor Hart, do you wish to move your motion?
I do so move. I believe it's seconded. I will defer to Councillor Mulroney to speak on the matter, please.
Councillor Roy, do you wish to second the matter?
Yes, please. Oh, sorry, second.
Yes.
Yes. I hope you will indulge me a little bit because this is an extremely serious meeting. I am incredibly sad to be speaking to this motion because I never thought I would see the day when Leigh Town Council would suffer such ignominy as is taking place now. In 4 short months it has been dragged into the mire, the subject of public ridicule. As for Mr Parris's question, which I know he withdrew but I had seen it, implied there is a dereliction of duty to the residents of Leigh, misleading of fellow councillors, ignoring of residents' questions, and cancelled meetings and events. So much for being effective and efficient, which was what you stated as your aim. You are bereft of ideas and have taken peremptory actions without any plan or care for the effects on people or services. This council has been in existence for 25 years or more, and there have been many councillors like Jean Rousewell, Mike Dolby and Mike King of openly different political persuasions, but who left their politics at the door and who would be horrified by what is happening to a council that has grown in strength and service to the people of Leigh. But that isn't happening now. It's grinding to a halt through the inertia of the leading group. Clearly, rolling up your sleeves and getting on with the job is not in your repertoire. Sadly, and I say this sadly, we are stuck with you for 3.5 years. We know we cannot win this vote, but clearly we are not the only ones who have these concerns. In the Echo yesterday, Chairman, you said, "I am not quite sure how she," meaning me, expects it to going to succeed when there are 13 Conservative councillors out of 16. So clearly there's a party whip, and the vote is predetermined. What price democracy if individuals are deterred from having their say because they might lose? I'm pleased to see that on X, Twitter for those of you who don't know, that the National Association of Local Councils has been alerted and asked to look into this, naming Leigh Town Council more ignorantly. For heaven's sake, this is a parish council. This madness needs to end, and end now, and the town council get back to doing its job. It was never broken, there was no need to fix it. If you haven't managed to put a case against the town clerk together in 4 months, there clearly isn't a case to answer, and you are scrabbling around for justification for a wholly egregious cause, so reinstate her now. She knows what she's doing, and start acting like adults, not empty suits. The staff, other councillors, and above all the residents deserve a lot better.
Do any other councillors wish to speak on this matter? Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Chair. I joined the council in 2020 and I've been delighted to be able to work with our exemplary town clerk and our very hard-working, resourceful, innovative and happy staff for whom nothing is too much trouble, especially for our residents. Since the elections in May, however, how things have changed. We now have an introspective administration, a suspended town clerk, a very unhappy and dejected workforce, with growing anger amongst yourselves, the residents we serve. One of my Hersham Ward residents recently told me they're acting like playground bullies. Today marks the 30th working day, 44 days in total since the suspension of that town clerk. And we're still no nearer a resolution or even the appointment of an independent investigator. I again respectfully remind councillors that staff handbook stipulates that suspension of staff should be as short as possible, and we're still no nearer to a resolution or even the appointment of an independent investigator. I would urge all members of the Conservative group to carefully consider how they vote, as they bear a collective responsibility for any decisions reached that impact negatively on the council, our staff and our residents. I abhor the reputational damage being visited on the council since May, and to see
see a lot of staff so sad and demoralised is heartbreaking. I support the motion.
There's one point your statement needs correct. An investigator has been appointed.
This morning.
Are they a member of the Tory party?
Members, the motion is before you. All those in favour of the motion. All those in favour of the motion, please indicate.
Are you going to defend yourselves?
All those against. In accordance with standing orders, I have adjourned this meeting. I propose the meeting be adjourned. Council, don't second that motion. Thank you. This will be adjourned for 15 minutes.
I would like to say something. Excuse me, you listen. I am a member of the party. I stood for the town council. Unfortunately, I had COVID and didn't get in. I am a little concerned that we got in saying that we were going to cut costs. Well, at present, we're increasing costs because we've got the town clerk down, and obviously there is a problem, and I agree it should be sorted. You're quite right. But we're paying for wages, I would imagine, because I believe that is the law, and we're paying for an additional town clerk. Now, what I'm saying to you is, you've lost the vote. The vote has been lost. I would say to you, please try harder. Please try and be friendlier to everyone who is sitting as a councillor. You've all got to get on together. I'm not casting aspersions at anybody in particular, but I do think you've got to calm down, all of you, try and be reasonable, and don't act without thinking. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, councillor, can I just say something about that? I know a lot of you people are not going to like it, but when I was with council, it was the lead dams in control. Now, it's the Conservatives. What's the difference? Yes, it was. Most people on the turnover of councillors were lead dams. Not true, sir. That is true. Absolutely not true. I was on the council.
The meeting's adjourned.
I think they said that. Part 2, the fiasco.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 8, Southend City Council. This is a chance for Southend City Councils who represent the Leigh Town Council area to provide an update of their activities. I saw Councillor Longstaff a moment ago. Is he still in the room? Councillor Roach, wish to speak. Councillor's asked to speak, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Roach, he's just the Councillor's asked to another meeting as well.
Hello. Welcome to my stand-up routine. I'm Richard Longstaff. I'm Southend's first Green Party councillor, voted in by the residents of Leigh Ward, so thank you very much. I'm not a natural born politician, so I'm very much finding my feet. 12 weeks into the role, it's a fascinating insight representing Leigh Ward on the council. And I've put a lot of effort in, at least I think so. It's one of those things that's consuming if you let it be. I start lecturing back at university next week, so I've really tried to hit the ground running. So, so last week I got my first motion through council with cross-party support generally, and I'd like to thank Carol and colleagues that are sitting here tonight. I think I've left Martin and so lots of broad party support, and it was regarding the trees, Southend trees. And
pass the motion regarding a methodology toolbox to assist the tree officers that do a fantastic job, but also the highways officers that are on the ground, and to plant thousands more trees without affecting City Council budget by applying for rounds of big funding and Senate. We think we can get the money, we can get the grants, there's money available, that remains to be seen of course, but the aim is to plant thousands of more trees and to find locations to do that to increase South End's tree canopy cover, which remains at 13%, and it should be a minimum of 15% according to the Forestry Commission. Leigh has just 10%. So in a heating climate, and we're all aware of that, it's been regularly touching the 40s in southern Europe this year. It was of course touching the 40s here in Leigh last year. And we know how warm we feel, and trees are a really significant part of the solution to mitigate climate change. So that was a success last week. And generally I sit on the Development Control Committee with Carol and of course other members, and I hope to put my architectural skills and education to good use there. And I sit on also the People Committee, so I've had some interesting insights into healthcare, touring the hospital, meeting senior nurse practitioners and ward managers and A&E department. So it's a real kind of baptism of fire for being thrown in at the deep end, but I'm enjoying it, I think. Hopefully I'm doing a good job. I'm contactable pretty much 24/7. No, I'm not contactable 24/7. I'm not an emergency plumber, but hopefully you've seen my leaflets drop in. So there's contact details, phone number, email address, and my home address as well. So I haven't had any eggs thrown in the windows just as yet. But yeah, I'm here to serve. I'm here to uphold the noble principles of council life. And my passion is the built environment. I'm trying to make the place we live better. And hopefully, with cooperation from these guys, I think Leigh Ward's got to be the most represented ward in all of Southend, with 10 councillors or so representing us. So it won't be long before we're all picking up your dog poo. There's a lot of people here supporting the ward. And I'm sure between us we need to work effectively across party and make it non-party political. I see everybody as a human being first. There is an awful lot of criticism, but I see people first, and I get on well pretty much with everybody, and I'm a reasonable guy, and I look for the logic and rationale in conversation. And my experience on the whole with everybody since I've been in council has been really positive. People have been really helpful, supportive, and I'd just like to thank all the conversations I've had with everybody around. They've all been positive, all really been constructive. Even when we disagree, we've got to remain civilised, and we've got to have that kind of rational debate and make sure that it's cooperative and courteous and respectful. So, and above all, just be kind. And together we'll find a way. So, thank you very much. I'm supposed to be at an AGM meeting right now. It's Corate, so I should be there. I should have been there at 7:30, but I just thought I'd pop in and say hi. So, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Unfortunately, the badgers aren't listening to you. It is a problem with badgers down there. As you probably know, they're a protected species and they have to be dealt with in a certain way under legislation. So we can't do anything with the badgers without we get the relevant permissions from the badger people. The ecologists are on site at the moment installing mesh and putting in gates. So once this has been done, the monitoring will commence. And subject to the badgers actually leaving, the carriageway construction can get underway and the closures that have been put in place can be removed and completely made safe. I'm not saying it's going to be quick, but it's moving. The other thing, just to update you, some of you may not know about it, but over the summer months, this year and last year, the police have run something called Op Union, and that has been about antisocial behaviour in the city, all along the seafront, including Old Leigh. Last week was the last weekend, kids have obviously got back to school, and as far as I'm aware, there haven't been, well, if there have, they've been very few and far between any incidents in Old Leigh, which is brilliant compared with what happened a couple of years ago. So that's a great improvement. Hopefully the police will still get funding for it next year as well. And the other thing is the 20-mile-an-hour speed scheme for the roads between London Road and Rectory Road is moving on a pace, and several of the junctions have already been, they've had their raised platforms installed. I will urge people when they go along there, two things. Twice in 2 days, I've been driving along Glendale Gardens, and somebody has come down Lymington, and despite the big way sign, has just gone straight across. This morning, I nearly had the front of the car taken out. The other thing is, I've also had people that have got in touch with me and said, oh, they've done the tarmacking, but they haven't done this and they haven't done that. They can't do everything at once. You know, once they put the tarmacking in, they've got to let it cure before they can put the signage on it and everything else. So I would just urge people to be a bit patient if they've got that work outside their property or near their property. Apart from that, I think that's everything.
Thank you. So my name is Councillor Owen Carty. I am the councillor in Westley, elected at the same time as Richard. So 12 weeks in, we're already picking up sort of odd bits and bobs. And I think one of the strangest things I've picked up, actually, I'll start with this, because I think Richard and Carol have covered a lot of the things happening at the council and a lot of the some of the things happening in legal. But in Westley, I think I've had a really strange case. So 3 weeks ago, I was out knocking on doors in Henry Drive, and somebody says to me, oh, I keep on getting all this strange posts, all these different names on that I don't recognise. You knock on the next door, and the next residence does the exact same thing. And the door after that, they said the exact same thing. And it turns out Henry Drive is a sort of national phenomenon where there are over 70 registered companies on one road in Westley, which obviously is an instance of fraud. So we've been trying to deal with that. So already I've contacted the City Council's fraud team to see what we can do locally about it. I've contacted Companies House to see what measures they have in place now to make sure the companies that are being registered at specific addresses are definitely connected to them. And I've also spoken to one of the special advisors in the Treasury Office, which is generally in Parliament, just to make sure that if there's any loopholes within current legislation that's coming up, if the Member of Parliament could add an amendment to it, so that we can try and close some of those loopholes. Because it's really not fair that we've got some elderly residents on Henry Drive who are being taken advantage of for offshore companies that want a UK-based address. So that's one of the sort of weird and wonderful things that happen on your local council. On top of that, one of the things that fills my inbox for residents that live near Burnham Road are the steps from that side of Marine Parade that lead down to the station. So the shrubbery there is sort of starting to overgrow, and the lighting, there's a couple of dark spots as well around there. So what I'm trying to do is get an additional light put in along there, and I've already contacted the relevant officers to do so, and it looks like that could go ahead. But also making sure that the trimming of the bushes is done on a regular basis, so that actually when people come home from the station late at night, it's just a lot safer around there. We've already had a commitment to make sure that the trimming on the main steps on Marine Parade going down to the station are being done. So that's fantastic. So we've got the 3 of those being done, but we're just making sure that additional pathway of Burnham Road has the same treatment. One of the other things that from those of you who live on the Highlands Estate, Highlands Boulevard, there's a lot of complaints I get about littering around Belfair School. So that the first bin outside Belfair is emptied by Veolia a lot more frequently than the one further down the boulevard, the one by Agnes Avenue and around the Dahlia Crescent. Now, what we tend to find are that school kids who come out of school don't necessarily put their rubbish in the first bin. Instead, they'd much rather throw it over in the boulevards, or they overflow the bin further down. So what I'm trying to do is making sure that those bins are being emptied more frequently, and I've also raised the bins by Thames Drive on the London Road are also being used for residential waste, where people who live in the flats near there keep on bringing their normal waste down and honking it around bins. So we're trying to make sure those issues are being picked up on too. As a sort of wider Southend point, one of the issues I am raising at council now is also got the fireworks coming up. And whilst they're not being held in Leigh, I think a lot of Leigh residents go and attend them. So one of the things I'm pushing for is the pier closes at 8 p.m. and the fireworks starts at 8 p.m. What I think would be fantastic is if the pier could be opened for an extra hour or two, so that residents who want to can actually travel along the pier and have a different viewing angle for the fireworks. We get very, very bunched up on the seafront, and that's fantastic. We have a brilliant free display, but I think there'll be other families that want to go and use the pier too. So we're trying to do that, it's just another good idea. And also, something else which is neighbouring is Belfast Park. I know a lot of my residents in Westley use Belfast Park and use the golf course. At the last full council meeting in Southend, Councillor Stephen Aylan put forward a motion for there to be a park warden in Belfast Park, specifically to collect fees for the golf course, but also just to generally improve the security around the way. I know my residents who live around Garden Drive and who like to walk through that entrance there will feel a lot safer knowing there's just a dedicated member of staff, hopefully soon, to help secure the park.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Item 9, Town Clerk's Report. I understand it. Councillor Mulroney.
I understand why we haven't got one this month. Can you assure me that it will be, because it's done not just at the council, there's an update of committees as well, the relevant committees. Can you assure me that this will now start up again? I totally understand that the local town clerk cannot be expected to know all of your assistant council decisions. So can I ask who is moving this forward to assist you, given that the role is really fulfilled by the town clerk and solely?
I appreciate that it is difficult for councillors, but at the moment, my understanding of the council and my understanding of your committees is evolving. And so I hope to be able to have a report for you for the next council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. Does it answer your question? Item 10, committee reports. Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very brief point. I'm not sure I see the point of item 10 because there are no minutes to be considered. But what is the status of 10A, the Planning, Licensing and Highways Committee? It doesn't seem to say whether there is a set of minutes or whether they're deferred or otherwise.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. I understand minutes have been prepared by the clerk of that committee. I have not seen them forward, but there was a meeting last night, so I'm not sure if he's had time to prepare those minutes as yet. But they will be brought forward to the next meeting. Councillor Mulroney.
Thank you, Chair. I note that there was no meeting of the Communities and Culture Committee and no meeting of the Finance and Governance Committee went ahead. Can you tell me, was this because there was no business to transact? A swift review of earlier papers would indicate that that isn't the case. And what do the chairs of the committee understand as their role, given that the need for training was suspended by the group when you first took office?
I'll take that last point first, Councillor Mulroney. The Parliament added to the standing orders on advice from the National Association of Local Councils, the Essex Association of Local Councils, was not a legal inclusion in the standing orders. It's not a requirement we can put onto councils. Second point being that we have tried to progress matters, and we are now trying to progress the committees forward. We have dates in place. However, it does not help when we have members of staff regularly stating it is not their role to give advice. So we're trying to push forward. I'm sorry I've had to make that statement, but we have not been entirely helped along the way.
Can I just come back on that? I find that statement really
offensive.
Can you take the mic, please, Carol?
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Councillor. Actually, I've answered your question, and I think this is not a particular class speaking.
Thank you. I think the reason that you find that you get that answer is perhaps in the way the question is asked, and secondly, in the fact that the town clerk obviously oversees the agenda, even if she doesn't clerk the particular agenda, and the staff that you have in the office are the staff that deal with the community centre aspects of the business, and not the town council elements of it. I know, for instance, Ingmar here does a cracking job on the planning committee. He's been doing it for quite some time, so he knows, and he's been trained by Helen. Emma, who's a financial officer, has stood in and did a really good job in the first weeks of Helen's suspension. But again, she's not somebody that has been trained in taking minutes and things. You do need to be a specific type of person to do that type of thing. So I don't think for 1 minute that the staff are telling you that they aren't there to advise you because they don't want to. It's because that it's not their role and they don't have the wherewithal to be able to do so because it's not part of their job.
Can I just make a clarification to Councillor Monroe's point? Obviously, she brought forward that the staff, we don't have the correct people in place or the people to clerk those meetings because our current town clerk is suspended. Obviously, Ingmar has been clerking the planning.
Sorry,
this is done previously.
I'm not clerking the meetings, which I stated to Jonathan, I'm just minuting.
Okay, so you're a minuting a meeting, that's a correction. This council previously resolved to have a staffing review of all staff because we believe it's important we have an assistant town clerk or someone who is qualified to be able to step in instances like this, whether it be through ill health or suspension when our current town clerk is not available. But unfortunately at the moment that's not the case, but we are going through a staffing review at some point, and that will be amended so we do have people who are multi-skilled, who do have the correct qualifications, who can clerk meetings and produce those documents for us in the correct time.
But you've got a locum to do it. What's his role?
Councillor Hart.
May I make one thing perfectly clear? I will not personally accept any criticism of the staff who work in this office for all of us. And may I furthermore risk my personal involvement in any future adjudicating panel by pointing out that certain members of this council have removed the head of those staff, the lady who was most responsible for giving us all the advice that we needed when we needed it.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, Councillor Hart, that was not me criticising the staff in any matter. I was just simply stating that more training needs to be in place, they need to be qualified to do their jobs. It was not a criticism and it should not be taken so. We do not criticise the staff, they do brilliant work, brilliant jobs, but they should have the correct qualifications and experience to do the jobs that they require.
He criticised, the chairman criticised the staff.
If that was for the chairman, unfortunately it was directed after my question at me. I do apologise. If the chairman would like to clarify, I can pass it back over to him.
That was directed at no one in particular.
Thank you for the full line of this. Committee section.
I just want to say, I understand what you're saying, but what you have to bear in mind were not employed to be committee clerks. They were employed to do other jobs, and they do those other jobs in an exemplary manner. You've taken the head off, and therefore you don't have anybody underneath. We used to have an assistant town clerk, we don't anymore.
If I could add one other comment to that, in defence of the staff, I've been working with them now for about 4 weeks. I managed to get in the office about 1 day a week, and I have had nothing but support and assistance from them. They have been very helpful. They are doing the best they can in a difficult situation. I do not mean that in a derogatory way. It is difficult to adapt to changing circumstances, but I have nothing but support from them. I'm very pleased.
Chairman, so coming back to the item 10 that we're under 10, the Planning Licensing and Highways Committee, which I am chairman of that particular committee. I just want to say that we've had good meetings, well supported, I feel right, supported at that committee, good discussion on planning applications, the ones that we decide to sort of put comments to for or against to the South End City Council to discuss. But other items have come forward to that particular committee. Under sort of highways, we're looking at the issue at the moment in Old Leigh and the signs for parking. There's all kind of concern down in the sort of old town of vehicles going to the end, realising there's lots of parking spaces at the end of old town coming back again, and with the many thousands of visitors we get along there, safety issue. So we've got a motion together after having a discussion at our committee to go to South End City for that to be discussed and implemented. But if I can, thanks to the Councillor Gilson, really the first raise that with the committee for it to go forward.
Thank you, Councillor Carson. Item 11, the strategic plan. There's no report at this stage. Councillor Moore.
Excuse me, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this question. I'm an accountant. If you're not presenting minutes, which circumstances do not permit you to present minutes, it would be normal practice for a Finance and Government Committee lead to report back to the Town Council on the meeting itself. So I don't know who is the lead of that committee.
Just to clarify that point there, as has been mentioned earlier, the staff are not trained in minute taking.
No, that's not my point. My point was it would be normal practice of the lead committee member, so whichever councillor takes control of that committee, to talk to that, just like the gentleman on the planning committee did.
That's true. The bottleneck in the minutes is me, because I've got to minutise them and get them published. So once we've caught up with that, then the minutes will be published in the normal manner. So
sorry,
that's the bottleneck.
I don't think my point is coming across clearly enough. I'm not asking for minutes. What would be normal practice would be for the lead of that committee to talk to the finances, even if they're not, even if the minutes are not prepared. Finance and governance, particularly if you are missing a clerk, is very, very critical to the ongoing of any organisation.
Yeah. This will be under item 19. So strategic plan, there's no Councillor Owen.
Yeah, the PDG, and for those who don't know what that is, that's the Project Development Group, was held. I attended it, and so did several others, and there were some outcomes that came. It was quite a good discussion. And the town clerk I know, before she was suspended, drafted a survey, which we'd agreed would take place, which was sent to all councillors. Now, I spoke to her after a little while, and I was told that I was the only one who had responded. She was then suspended, so I presume nobody else responded after that. Can I just ask, why did none of the leading group on the council respond to the draft, and what action do you propose to take? Given the current strategic plan was approved last year, only last year, for several years, and that the chair was a member on the council at the time, was the PDG just a waste of time?
This is something we're bringing forward
Other words you forgot.
Councillor Dawson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, would you agree with me that we actually held a very good meeting with regards to this, where a large number of councillors from all the groups in the council has a big input with regards to that committee to clarify the importance of this?
Thank you, Councillor Dawson. Yes, indeed. And of course, there were many ideas, not just a survey of local residents, brought forward at that meeting. And obviously, we look forward to progressing a number of those ideas and items going into the future. And I know some of those items and ideas are coming forward on tonight's agenda as well further on. Thank you. 12, Youth Provision PDG. There's no report this month. Councillor Moroni.
Right, as you know, your group asked for a PDG, working party, whatever you like to call it, and only Councillor Garston turned up. We had a good discussion. It was very disappointing in terms of the youth leaders being present because they come specially. They then invited us to go to one of the group sessions, the youth sessions. I went to the youth session and had a very enjoyable evening playing table tennis and some other games that I can't remember the rules of. But as far as I can tell, absolutely nothing has happened since. I don't believe any other councillor attended the youth club. The youth club started again last week. What are you doing to further whatever it is that you have proposed for the youth provision?
Thank you. The Youth Provision PDG will obviously report back to the Community Culture Committee, but it's our intention for a number of councillors to meet with the members of the youth club and those who lead it to hear what their views are.
And you will attend this time?
Absolutely. I think if I'm called for, Councillor, I knew full well why I was not there the previous occasion. It was due to bereavement.
Don't go down that road, Councillor.
I'm not going to tell them that. Item 13, representative reports. Do we have any reports from councillors who have been attending outside bodies? Councillor Gilson.
Yeah, good evening everyone. I attended a meeting down at Sea Life Adventure over the sewage and listened to a pretty good presentation by Anglian Water, and also listened to quite a lot of hysteria, what people didn't understand. So I think it was beneficial for all. Hopefully you've seen what I put together for the Leigh Times and the Oracle. But much of what we hear that comes off social media isn't true. And sometimes what you see isn't what you think you see. The brown scum is a natural occurring protein. It is not pollution. And one of the most bizarre things that may make you smile, the clouds passing in front of the sun put black shadows on the water. That is not pollution, as was pointed out to me only a couple of weeks ago. But it was a very interesting meeting. They're going to spend an awful lot of money on our sewage, and especially our storm drains, so that should be beneficial to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilson.
Yeah.
Where's the report? Are you providing a report to...
I attended the same summit. I would like to comment on it as well.
That's fine.
Yes, I was at the same summit meeting, and I have to say, frankly, my impression of the meeting was whitewash. Yes, there are natural causes for blooms in water, but I don't think they cause turds and sanitary towels to be floating about in our estuary. I will say that I am involved in a campaign, currently writing to our local MP to ask her to get real and look at some of the press publicity there has been lately, outlining the numbers of dry expulsions of sewage. Those are only supposed to occur on extreme weather conditions. and there's something like 850 nationally per week being carried forward. And the government itself is currently criticised for not actually pursuing the companies causing that offence. Thank you, Chair, I'm finished.
Councillor Robinson.
Along with Councillor Saturday and Councillor Pearson, I attended a meeting at Eastwood Community Centre with the police. It was chaired by Nicola Drake, and as Councillor Moretti has said, we heard a bit about Operation Union, so I won't go back over that. The two main relevant facts to us was that because of the significant amount of speeding, especially along our roadway, 2 new warranted police have been put in place, and they can actually ticket at the time. The other issue that is of interest was lighting in the skate park in Old Leigh. It was felt that a CCTV camera is needed. Also, the question of protection of the order boundary was extended. Now, Councillor Pearson, I think, has got an update on that, so with your permission, I can pass that over to him.
If I can just say that we're drafting a letter to South End Council. We're drafting a letter to South End Council. The drafting of it is complicated because some of it is ours and some is South End's. So it would be a request. That's how I understand it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I've attended so far 3 meetings of the Airport Coordinating Committee. The last one was just this afternoon. When I get the minutes, which are confidential until the minutes are agreed by that body, which has representatives on it from Southend City Council and many other surrounding councils, I then circulate those to all councillors of this council. So if they've got any points they wish to raise via me or direct to the airport, they can do so. I've also attended an online airport meeting about noise. Again, they're going through their final reports. I can't release anything of that because we undertake to keep that confidential until they say you can release the minutes. But they will be released, and it will be released in the same way to all councillors of this town council. I've attended with Councillor Gilson a meeting with Veolia. Actually, I was the passenger there because Councillor Gilson is our representative of Veolia, really interested about waste issues and practicalities and how to approach things when they go wrong and using by Southend. And you hear the Veolia side of issues. Us as residents can say, well, you've not been round to empty this bin or that bin. They have so many rounds to make, it's not true. How they do it in 4 days sometimes is nothing short of a miracle. I think they probably think that as well as a number of us, but they do. But the great news with Veolia, if there's something wrong, they're not beyond putting it right. And they will be really direct and honest that perhaps a member of the team didn't do what they should have done on that particular occasion. So that's really refreshing. I've also attended a bus group recently. That was a Saturday morning. That was very interesting, which will tally up to something coming up a bit later in the agenda by Councillor Hart about the number 21 route. I'm really pleased to announce that from the Southend Airport perspective, I've secured today an online presentation to all new town councillors so that everyone has an opportunity to ask the airport questions from the town council. And also, similarly with Essex Buses, I've secured their senior officer to do an online presentation, a question and answer session with all 16 of us. That's with the local clerk. We're going to be organising that because that will be virtual. So I think really that accurately summarises the things that I've done in the last, I would say, probably about the last month or so. Thank you very much.
item 14. A motion submitted by Councillor Hart for further revision of the staff handbook. Councillor Hart, do you wish to move this motion?
Yes, I do.
And I think Councillor Bowie is going to second this.
I might speak to it. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors. I'm assuming that you all have actually read the motion. It's very long, it's very detailed, and I am going to have to assume that members of the public who have an interest in that matter have also had a chance to have a look at it online. I will be reading a small part of it, if you'll indulge me. The motion is to refer consideration of amendments to the staff handbook outlined below for the protection of the office of the town clerk and any incumbent thereof, and all staff members to an all councillor working party for consideration and report back with recommendations. The staff handbook rules, and I will summarise here, basically a disciplinary matter would normally be handled by the town clerk. Should that matter involve the town clerk, it defers to the chair of the staffing committee. Should that chair and the members of the staffing committee then be involved in raising the complaint, they must also stand down. And three guesses, it then defers back to the town clerk, who has been suspended with all due respect to our locum. The working party we're proposing is tasked with considering the changes to the staffing handbook and any consequential policies of the council. Now, I'm not going to read through the whole thing here again either, but I do suggest strongly that behind this entire motion, among other things, is a request that the question of suspension currently in operation be settled within the next 7 days. That is additional to the motion that's before us, but I do move that point as well. Unless there are any questions from anybody who wants clarification, I will leave it at that. Thank you all.
I'm just really going to reiterate what Councillor Hart has just mentioned in just a slightly different way, as it is quite complex, but the current situation has highlighted an anomaly whereby issues concerning the town clerk that would normally be dealt with by the staffing committee were fall short of impartiality should the instigators of such issues be members of that committee, or indeed the Finance and Governance Committee. This motion therefore seeks to address the matter as detailed in section